Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here. In this video, we're looking at 13 more basic tips for the Elder Scrolls Online that the game never really tells you. ESO is such a huge game with so many things to learn that I've always been surprised at how limited the in-game tutorials are in terms of helping out new players. And even if you're more experienced, chances are there's still a few tips here that you may not know about. So let's jump right into the list. Tip number 1 has to do with fast travel and way shrines. First, you can always fast travel to any way shrine in the game that you've previously unlocked no matter where you are, but this is for a price. There's a baseline cost here that depends on your level. Once you're in CP ranks, for example, that costs around 146 gold to fast travel, which is not bad, but there is a catch. Your next fast travel after that initial trip will cost an insane amount of gold, talking over 1,000 gold per trip. Now this cost is actually dependent on time from your previous trip. You can see as I'm waiting here, the cost is actually going down every second. And to reach that initial travel cost, again, the lower cost, that's actually going to take you around 10 minutes. 10 minutes, I'm not kidding. So initiating your first fast travel from an actual way shrine, that's going to be extremely important, especially if you're making multiple trips in a row, because starting from that way shrine is free, no matter how often you do it or where you start. Just walk up to the way shrine itself, interact with it, and off you go. Finally, if no way shrine is available for you, remember that fast traveling to other players is also free. This is a great reason to join up with player guilds, because it also allows you to travel to other areas in the game that you haven't unlocked yourself. So group up or guild up and unlock that map. Tip number 2 is to upgrade your inventory space. Now when you first start your character, you'll be given 60 inventory slots by default, which does seem like a lot at first, but it will actually get filled fairly quickly. So you'll want to start upgrading your inventory slots as soon as possible. To do this, go to the pack vendor. This is located in most major towns in the game. Each upgrade you buy gives you 10 extra slots, and the first few upgrades are pretty cheap, but the more you buy, the more expensive they get. Now another option, if you have a mount set in your collections, is that you can get additional mount carry space by upgrading your mount carrying capacity. Now this sounds like it would only affect you while riding, but the extra inventory spaces you buy this way always stay with your character even when you're dismounted. Now this always costs 250 gold per extra item slot, so that ends up being pretty cost effective later on, especially when you're trying to buy some of those later bag upgrades once they get really expensive. But remember, you can only buy one additional slot every 20 hours or so, and you have to do this in place of upgrading things like your riding speed or your riding stamina, so there is a trade-off. Tip number 3 is to always bring lockpicks and soul gems on your character. Now, there's nothing worse in ESO than when you come up to a juicy, advanced, or master treasure chest out in the world and not having any lockpicks to open it. Same thing with dying far away from a way shrine and not having any soul gems. For that reason, it's always a good idea to keep a large stock of both lockpicks and soul gems on your character at all times, just in case. Now both of these can be purchased from vendors in most major towns, but you should also pick up quite a few of these just by searching random containers and defeating enemies, so chances are you will have some. Remember too that soul gems are needed to recharge your weapon enchants when those run out. Tip number 4 is to repair your armor. Now as you journey through ESO, your equipped armor will gradually deteriorate over time, and if you die, this process happens even faster. Now, to be clear, some deterioration on your armor pieces is okay, but if you let your armor go forever without repairing it, you will eventually lose stats, your armor traits will stop working, and even some armor passives will no longer benefit your character. Also, if you depend on an active armor skill, let's say like Absorb Magic from the light armor skill line, that skill will eventually stop working too, because a fully broken piece of armor no longer counts towards the minimum 5 pieces of armor that you need equipped to cast that skill. Your armor status is shown on each piece of armor by this line on the armor description. Now merchants do sell repair kits that work based on the level of your armor, There's also greater repair kits that work on armor of any level, and you can also just straight up pay for armor repairs at any NPC merchant by paying them gold directly, and the amount that you pay depends on how many pieces of armor you need fixing and how badly they are broken. For number 5 on our list, we got one last tip about gear, and that is you can actually lock specific items so you don't accidentally destroy them or deconstruct them by mistake. To do this, select the item in your inventory and then click on Lock Item. Locked items will also notify you when you attempt to upgrade them or change their trait so you can make sure that you're upgrading the right item too. Tip number 6 is something that I actually wondered about for quite a while, and I'm pretty sure this is never explained anywhere in ESO, but it's that PvE enemies do not critically strike. So while players can definitely crit strike with both damage and healing skills, NPCs and PvE enemies cannot. This is important to understand because there are entire sets in the game focused on reducing critical damage, and even the gear trait Impenetrable, which does the same thing. So if you're running armor with that Impen trait in PvE content, it's literally doing nothing for you, and you should think about picking up another armor piece with a different trait as soon as possible. So for tip number 7, we're diving deeper into some hidden game settings that a lot of players aren't aware of, starting with quick casted ground abilities. So some specific ground abilities like volley from the bow skill line, for example, those need to be targeted and casted before the skill actually works. This can be pretty cumbersome if you're trying to speed up your rotation because it requires multiple clicks just to cast one skill. Now this can be improved greatly by going into your gameplay settings and then setting quick cast ground abilities to on. This makes firing off that ground skill extremely easy. Just aim, cast, and move on to your next skill. Tip number 8 is one of my favorites. It's that you can actually customize the colors of several ground AoE abilities to make them easier to see, either for avoiding damage from enemies or for receiving positive effects from your allies. So to set this up, go to Options, Combat, then we have Friendly Color and Enemy Color. For enemy color, I like something bright and kind of light colored. That way I can see those enemy AoE effects and move out of them. You can also test it here, and you can increase or decrease the brightness of it as needed. Same thing for friendly AoE color. I personally like green, and again, you can test what it looks like and adjust the brightness if you need to. Tip number 9 is one of those things that should really be on by default, but of course it's not. Let's talk about preventing attacking innocents. You've probably experienced this yourself by accidentally tapping your attack key, maybe while you're trying to talk to an NPC. Instead, you end up smacking them with a light attack and you're instantly a fugitive from justice. Then you have to decide whether to kill that NPC or just run away. Then either way, you still have a bounty on your character, so let's just get rid of all that. What you'll need to do instead is go back to Options, Gameplay, and find Prevent Attacking Innocents. Toggle that on and you're good to go. Tip number 10 has to do with the NPC guilds in ESO, including the Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, and the Undaunted. All 3 guilds in the game have their own unique skill lines with active and passive abilities that most builds will benefit from, so you definitely want to make sure to unlock these as early as possible. To do this, head to your main faction town. Here I'm in Vocal Guard for the Aldemari Dominion, and make a quick stop to the Mages Guild, the Fighters Guild, and either the local bar or tavern to meet the Undaunted. In each case, all you have to do is talk to the main NPC, ask them a few questions about the guild, and say you want to join to unlock the skill line. It's that easy.
Are you here on Mages Guild? Yes, of course.
For tip number 11, we're diving into the champion point system, which is really important to understand, especially for endgame builds. Now, the first thing here is that champion points actually give your character extra stats. For example, you can see my character here who has max level CP. I have about 10,000 Magicka, almost 19,000 health, and over 30,000 stamina. Seems pretty good, seems pretty high. Well, a lot of that actually comes from the extra stats that champion points give me. Now, if I were to drop all of my champion points, go back to CP0, you can see how my stats then change. Only 8,000 magicka, 15, almost 16,000 health, and only 25,000 max stamina. Big difference between champion points and no champion points. Now, what most people don't understand is that you actually gain those stats based on the amount of CPs into each tree, either the green, red, or blue trees. And you can get those stats all the way up to CP 300, or in other words, 100 champion points into each color. So just as an example, again, I'll start with 0 champion points. Let me put about 30 points into the red tree. Because it's red, this is going to give me extra health. And so my character jumps up to about 17,000 extra health. Let me go back and put a little bit more. I'll go ahead and put 30 more into the red tree. This brings me up to 18,000 health. And I'll go ahead and put 100 total points into the red tree. This is going to max out my health at 18,663. You can see if I keep putting points in, like I'll put in 30 more points here, my health does not go above that level. You can see I've stopped getting bonus health on my character. Now, obviously don't do what I'm doing here. Don't put all of your champion points into one single spot. You want to spread it out to have a better balance of champion points. Just keep in mind that between basically CP10 and CP300, not only do you get the champion point bonuses, but you also get those extra stats. Tip number 12 is that champion points are account-wide, meaning they can also be used on any other character on your account, not just characters over level 50. Now, a lot of players don't know about this, or they actually forget about it when they're leveling up a new toon in ESO, but it's one of the best ways to actually level up a new character. Starting at level 1, you actually have access to all your champion points. And those extra points into defense, into recovery, into damage, those make a very big difference when you're trying to level up a new character. So however many points you have access to, make sure you select those on all of your new characters as well to make up leveling that character even easier. For our 13th and final tip for this video, let's talk about how to level up skills faster. Now, most players understand that in order to level up most of the skills in the game, you need to put the skill on your bar and you need to earn experience. That's pretty much a no-brainer. So you can see here I am on my Templar, trying to be a healer. So I am currently leveling up my Restoration Staff skill. I want to get it to level 50, and I've got Grand Healing on my back bar. So yes, I will get to level 50 on my Resto Staff, but it's going to take me a long time. Now, the reason for this is that most skill lines in ESO actually level up based on the amount of skills that you're currently using in that skill line. So the fact that I'm just using one Resto Staff skill, that means it's going to level up the skill line pretty slowly. Now, if I want to power level this, the best thing to do is just unlock as many skills as I have access to and put them all on my bar at once. If I can play with every skill on this bar as a Restoration Staff skill, that skill line is going to actually level up 5 times faster. This can make a huge difference when you're trying to finish out your skill lines, or maybe learn a new skill line for a different spec of your character. Now, another great trick for leveling up your skills fast is using quest experience. Basically, before you finish the quest, make sure you have your bar set up exactly how you want it. Make sure you're on that skill bar, and then when you turn in your quest, you'll be leveling up exactly the skills that you want. Finally, not all skills in ESO level based on having skills slotted on your bar. Obviously, a few skill lines are different, and that includes the armor skills, light, medium, and heavy armor. Now, when you first start the game, you actually don't see any of those skills at all. Now, the way that you can unlock those skill trees is by equipping 3 items of the same weight. So 3 light pieces, 3 medium, or 3 heavy. You can see once I put on 3 heavy pieces on my Dragon Knight here, I now have the heavy armor skill line unlocked, ready to go. Now, in terms of leveling this skill line, it's a little bit different from your weapon or your class skills. So the way to level up armor skills faster is to actually equip more pieces. For example, if you only have one piece of heavy armor equipped, that heavy armor skill line is going to level extremely slowly. But if you have 5 pieces or even 6 or 7, that skill line is going to level up much faster. So think about what skill lines and what passives you need first, and then equip as many of those armor pieces as possible. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this video on the 13 beginner tips that ESO never tells you. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, don't forget to crush that like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more beginner guides and tutorials just like this. In fact, this video is basically a part 2 from another video that I did a few weeks ago. I'll have that linked in the description below if you want to check that out. Altogether, we have 25 really good beginner tips, so make sure you check out that other video as well. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well, stay safe, and I will see you around in the next video.